Welcome, Lauren, to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, super excited to chat with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited too. And I'm excited I get to talk to two Laurens today.
Woo!
It's a
So,
Renee sandwich.
yes. Yeah, I'm always really excited to talk about anything in the anti-aging space. I think our listeners know that I just geek out on this stuff. So I've been really looking forward to this episode. And we actually did more of an anti-aging episode a couple months ago where we really briefly mentioned that there's the 9 hallmarks of aging. We talked a little bit about like mitochondrial dysfunction, issue with telomeres, but today is a new topic for our listeners. We were talking about cellular senescence. And I'm sure everyone is like, okay, what is that? So I think to kick it off before we get into what we can do about it, we definitely want to wrap things up with like, okay, now we know that this is aging us. What do we do about it? But to kick it off, what is cellular senescence and why do
Yeah.
we need to know about it as far as aging goes?
Yeah, I definitely share your excitement and passion about this topic. It's an emerging area of research on senescent cells. It's so new that the phrase like Senolytic was coined by the Mayo Institute in 2015. So we're really talking about an emerging category in the longevity space. And I love that you mentioned the hallmarks of aging because, to go back to that and use that as a framework. This science team at Neurohacker has been really obsessed with the 9 hallmarks of aging, and two particular: mitochondrial dysfunction, which is about like the batteries in your cells not properly forming and working and doing their jobs. And the other is senescent cell accumulation. And so what that is, and it's a total, like an amazing body process. Actually, we're born with this process. It's when a cell becomes so worn out, so stressed out that it's beyond worth putting the energy into repairing it, it becomes senescent. And what that means is that it's neither dead nor alive, and it's taking up space. And the normal biological process is that the immune system goes through and prunes out these senescent cells. Well, kind of going back to like gardening is like I'm a gardener, so I really cling on to this gardening analogy because it's really useful. There's a lot of analogies that are used though for senescent cells because it's so hard to understand, and it's such a new, and it's a goofy word, but I do believe that like senescent cells are going to be used like in as a ubiquitously as keto and fasting and nootropics in the next 5 years because the research on it is just so moving. And so what happens with a plant, and you guys have seen it, is that a yellow leaf will form. And basically that leaf is no longer productive, and it sort of started the process of it turns yellow, it browns, and then it falls off. Well, that happens in our cells. That's what's going on, except that the falling off process doesn't happen. And one reason that gardeners prune off yellow leaves is to kind of force the plant to focus its energy on the green, on producing fruit, and not on still supporting these lingering yellow leaves. And, it's not so bad. I mean, a plant can be super healthy and productive just having 1 or 2 yellow leaves, but it's when it's covered in these yellow leaves that it doesn't have enough energy to support producing fruit, producing flowers, having those green, lush leaves. And so taking it back to like human body, one of the oldest like quotes in health is like, the health of the tissues depend on the health of the cells. And so when you have these cells that are no longer performing their function, that are so stressed out and worn out, but they haven't reached cellular death, these accumulate in all parts of the body. Like scientists have identified them in brain tissue, lung tissue, breast tissue, muscle tissue, joint tissue is a really common place. And so now you start thinking about aging and you think about these senescent cells. And so I explained like a lot of things really fast, but there's three things about senescent cells are really important to like, and one of the reasons why a very common analogy is zombie cells, because it's bad enough that there's these cells taking up space, not doing their work, slowing down the tissues. But the problem with senescent cells is they secrete inflammatory markers and actually change the health environment around the cells around them. And so, like zombies, when a zombie touches a healthy human being, they turn them into a zombie. Like, that's what these senescent cells do. So, reason one, they're not productive and they take the space of youthful cells. Two, they secrete these inflammatory markers that actually cause healthy cells to become senescent. And then three, they take advantage of our cellular network communication. And so kind of like jamming the signal, if you will, for our cells to communicate with each other. Because senescent cells are experts at hiding and finding ways to, they're not all the same. Like one senescent cell in one part of our body doesn't look and operate the same as in a senescent cell in another part of the body. And this is why like the research is so exciting and so fast moving right now, because the things that we're discovering about how senescent cells work in the body. And so I'm gonna pause there. I have like a lot more to say about senescent cells, but I'm sure I see you like bubbling questions.
I'm like scribbling questions.
I know. I'm like prioritizing. Oh gosh. Can't forget any of the questions. So when we're talking about aging, is that sort of the predominant marker that would predict how much senescence would build up over time? Or are there certain environmental factors or lifestyle choices? Like, who is more predisposed to this? Like you mentioned joints. So do senescent cells have more of an affinity for joints? So someone that's just harder on their joints, or is that like just too simple of a correlation to make?
Yeah.
Like who's really predisposed to this?
Well, I think it's a process that happens in all of us. And the weaker your immune system is, the more accumulation of senescent cells you're going to have as you age. And so you kind of start thinking about all the things you do to boost your immune system: exercise, cold therapy, fasting, etc. These are all things that you do. And so people who have lifestyles that are opposite to that, or compromising their immune system, are going to have a more accumulation of senescent cells. And why it's like, why it accumulates more as we age is because our immune system as we age becomes less productive. And so what happens is we have more of these yellow leaves hanging around. And back to the garden, when you having a lot of yellow leaves, not only does your plant less productive, but actually attracts pests, mold, all kinds of problems. And so it kind of is this like vicious cycle that happens. Immune system's less productive. It doesn't get to senescent cells as much. They accumulate more. They affect the health of the cells around them. And all of a sudden you start having this like snowball effect of accumulating senescent cells in certain areas. There's not enough research right now about why some people have an accumulation in the brain, why some people have an accumulation in the lungs. For example, I just recently brushed against a study about pulmonary fibrosis and senescent cells, and why joints but accumulate senescent cells. I think it kind of goes back to this tissue, the health of the tissue, and kind of analogy. And so these are areas that typically, as we see in aging, are areas of tissue that are vulnerable, if you will. So I think that but I think that there needs to be a lot more research to thoughtfully answer your question.
Sure. I have a little bit of an elementary question, but I'm just trying to be the listener right now. If we're talking about immune health, like what are signs that your immune system is robust or strong? Because I'm sure some biohackers could say like, oh, I boost my immune system. I always take these supplements and I do X, Y, and Z biohacks. Like I'm strong. Obviously it's a big spectrum, but do you have like a very clear analogy or association to understand if the immune system is strong, and not just maybe it's like I get sick a lot or I don't get sick a lot, or somewhere in between, because like a little bit of sick could strengthen, or maybe that's just a completely ridiculous analogy.
No, I think you hit it right on. And I think that resilience, like bouncing back, is probably like a bigger, at least from the research and from the advice from our medical team about immune resilience being like a really good factor. It's not about never getting sick or never getting exposed to things, but it's really kind of how you bounce back is probably a better thing to look at for measuring immune strength.
Great. That's helpful.
And speaking of measuring things, you mentioned that it is releasing inflammatory molecules. What, is there something that we can look at on labs? Like, are there specific markers that are
so right
elevated?
Now, the only measurement of senescent cells are coming in animal studies, because you have to do them like post-mortem animal studies. They're trying to figure out a way to measure them without because obviously
we're alive.
but so one, I mean, we could jump into one study that we have come up with, which was measuring people with joint pain or difficulty that express difficulty movement, a stiffness in joints, since that is a classical area for senescent cells to accumulate. And so we ran the study before and after, and actually the participants of the study took the Senolytic that we formulated for 2 days, took 2-week break, took it 2 days again, took a 2-week break. And the participants reported 50% less decrease in movement. Like, we're able to felt like they had an improvement in their stiffness and their pain, their joint pain, and their ability to like move around, which they had scored previously much lower.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot more research that we're even in the middle of a new Senolytics study right now. And so, but there's a lot more research to come. But one of the exciting things is that there's a lot of research around the ingredients that we chose. And that was kind of part of what built our confidence in the Senolytic formula. But I think we're getting too fast into the formula because I still want to talk more about senescent cells. And
we're also excited. Whatever you want to share. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, like, this is like a normal biological process that happens. And what the emerging part of it is us drawing the conclusions that, like, scientists are now starting to kind of re-examine the way we thought about aging. And now it's thinking a lot of the things in aging that are occurring the way that they are have to do with an accumulation of senescent cells. And this is why this category is so revolutionary, quite frankly, because it's a really kind of having a lot of scientists that had firm beliefs on the aging process re-examine those beliefs.
What is the link between these cells and cancer?
Well, I'm a little off my, outside of my expertise level on that, but I will say that this process exists a lot to do with not duplicating cancerous cells, like, in the body. This is why, like, because damaged and worn out and stressed cells and possibly cancerous cells, the body doesn't want to duplicate those cells. So in some ways, like, we're vilifying the senescent cells, but actually this process is an important process in the body for one of those reasons of cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it's a good thing. I mean, the human body is really smart. It's not going to have these if it's totally destroying us. But yeah, I mean, it's all part of the aging process. So, and I didn't realize it's so strongly linked with immune function. I'm trying to not jump ahead. I'm curious no, I won't go there because I want to ask a question about the formula.
I'll ask a question.
Okay, I'll hold my question.
I think a really good pain point is the joint pain. That's like something people can really attach to. And obviously a reduction in pain, perceived pain, is so huge. What else would we potentially feel if we did have an accumulation of these zombie cells? Anything else that is like clearly symptomatic?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things, at least from our research of taking a Senolytic profile, are like having more energy, having better sleep, having better digestion, like regular just baseline things, because you think about it and you're making space for more youthful cells, and the cells have a lot of jobs. And so when there is like a part of the population that's not doing their work, cleaning, rejuvenating, moving nutrients from one place to another, I mean, just to oversimplify, like thousands of jobs that a cell has, when you have more workforce doing those things, like the cascade of benefits is really whole body.
Yeah. Are the zombie
That makes
cells like,
sense.
are they lazy workers? Are they
They
angry
don't work.
workers?
I like this though. They don't work, and they try. I mean, basically, if we're going
So
down
they're
the
lazy.
working, they they uh they tell the people around them to not work too, and they start like, you know, kind of like messing up the morale.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And just take up that space. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, so I really like the just thinking about it from a space thing of like, you know, you're making space for these youthful cells.
Yeah.
Mm.
Does fasting support this process?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, I mean, fasting and uh any immune boosting activity is going to support this process.
Okay.
Amazing. Okay. So we have to keep thinking immune, making space. I love that.
Yeah.
I know we're moving quickly, but can we jump into the ingredients, like the powerhouses behind this Senolytic product that you guys have created?
Yeah. So, you know, we've been obsessed with the hallmarks of aging since we released our mitochondrial fitness formula, Qualia Life. That was our, you know, several years ago we released that. And so our research has been very keenly watching, you know, senescent cells. And we really appreciated the research that Fightin and quercetin and piperlongine are three of like the most famous senolytic ingredients. And one of the things to kind of appreciate about our formula is that, so we, you know, anyone can go out. There's a lot of bit of confusion about like the effective protocols for taking a senolytic. And the best studied protocol right now is what is called a hit and run protocol. So it's not taking a low dose every day, you know, of Fightin and quercetin. It's really taking a high dose for a short period of time and letting the body rest for, you know, a few weeks and then hitting it again. And this right now in the research is the most studied and effective protocol for reducing cellular senescent cells in the body. And so one of the things I appreciate of our formula is that, like quercetin. So we chose Quercifit, a version of quercetin, because quercetin is really not that bioavailable on its own. And so we did a lot of research of like, okay, this is a great ingredient, has a lot of senolytic potential, but it's not bioavailable. And so we found a company that uses, you know, basically a technology to make quercetin better. That's like their tagline, quercetin made better. And it literally is. And so, you know, I think that that's one thing to appreciate on the Fightin. You know, something to know about this is it's actually the yellow pigment in plant. It's a polyphenol. And so, and the polyphenol, the yellow pigment actually helps like protect. It's a protecting pigment. And so the research says that this really helps with the neuroprotective functions, but also helping targeting senescent cells in different parts of the body. And so one of the things I'm getting excited. So I want to slow myself down. So, you know, back to like, you know, so we have 9 ingredients in this formula. They're all dosed based on the research of causing senolytic effects. It is the hit and run protocol. So you take it 2 days in a row, 6 pills one day, 6 pills the second day. And then we recommend taking a 3 to 4 week rest and then repeating. We've included, because senescent cells are experts at hiding and experts at taking advantage of, and they're not one senescent cell, like I mentioned earlier, is the same. So we have things like Senactive in our formula, which no one else on the market has kind of combined these ingredients. But I want to like really talk about the thought process. So we included Senactive because it targets muscle tissue. And one of the things that happens as we age is it is actually harder to build muscle. You know, and one of the studies that they have is, or one of the thoughts that they have is that the accumulation of senescent cells in muscle tissue is kind of part of that blocker of, as we age, the inability to build on muscle. And so someone in their 20s doing the same workout is going to have a way better results than someone in their 50s doing the exact same lifting workout. And so Senactive is this really incredible ingredient that targets the muscle tissue. We included Longvita optimized curcumin because curcumin's been studied for its senolytic properties. It also has a bioavailability issue. And so this company that makes Longvita optimized curcumin extract has overcome that through their extraction process. But another important thing is that it is targeting brain tissue. So not only are we're approaching senescent cells in the brain with that ingredient. And then we have olive leaf.
Go ahead. A question about the curcumin. For a while we were hearing, well, you need the black pepper. And then it was like, no, the black pepper actually doesn't help with that. Like, can you tell us more about this curcumin?
Yeah. So we chose the Longvita optimized curcumin because of the studies around it not targeting the neuroprotective and brain issues. We do have in the formula piperlongum, which is long black pepper.
Okay, so it does help with that.
It helps with that, but it's actually in the formula because it was the second ingredient studied and cited in the Mayo Clinic study in 2015 for its senolytic properties and having its own really powerful senolytic potential. But it does have a synergistic relationship with curcumin. So that was
we've seen, areas of the world where they consume more curcumin in the diet that they have lower rates of dementia. So that makes sense with the neuroprotective factor.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
So I'm curious about the bioavailability. Is this like a call to like the quercetin and curcumin that's on the market? Like people are buying this stuff pretty readily, especially quercetin. It's just quite popular right now. Are most of the compounds out there not bioavailable? Is there any harm to taking these? Like what else do we need to know about maybe doing our due diligence and researching what we're taking before we...
I didn't realize this because I thought when I bought a bottle of curcumin or a bottle of quercetin that I was getting that benefit. But it turns out that most of that is a waste of money from how it's been explained to me from the science team, that our body cannot absorb it and really does need either some kind of synergistic ingredient combination or some kind of extracting process so that our body can absorb it. So, one of our values at Neurohacker is to advance the industry. And so we aren't transparent at all. Like we publish like the thought process behind every ingredient. And, there's no proprietary blends like a lot of supplements companies do on the back where they say like, proprietary blend. We publish everything on there. And I mean, obviously we would like everybody to try and take a step forward a bit and educate themselves and consumers that not all ingredients are created equal. And so we do work really hard at that for that reason. And also for ourselves, like we honestly created this formula. Several of the formulators were so passionate about it because they wanted to take it themselves. And there's nothing on the market that has this blend that thinks about joint issue, that thinks about muscle tissue, that thinks about the brain tissue, that has the studied dosages that are found in human studies. And so they were like, we want this. There's nothing like this on the market. And
that's
so
how the best products come to be.
And as my role, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to do, guys, because nobody knows what a senescent cell is. Nobody knows what a senolytic is. It's a weird word, but
it's getting out there.
Opportunity.
But we were just so fired up on it that and so it's been really humbling for me because we sold out our first production run that we released in a matter of weeks. and we were on back order for a bit. Now, we're not, thank goodness, but,
it's a good sign.
This formula, it really was, a passion project for the science team, because they're aging and they're like, this is exactly what I want to take once a month, 2 days a month.
Yeah. Hurry up, create. So
and I just wanted to share I was just going to say, I love the dosing, like the 2 days on, take time off. Like as a biohacker, that's actually easier for me.
Oh, so for sure. Oh, I have a question about that, but I have another one first. Yeah. I just wanted to share from a practitioner experience. I see a lot of clients that take those 2 compounds, especially curcumin, because I feel like there's been more research on it for longer. And people often will say, like, how could I possibly have inflammation in my body? I take curcumin, but yet they're still expressing all of these symptoms of inflammation, inflammatory markers, and like I guess symptoms that would correlate with that. And of course, it's not directly correlated, but maybe that goes to show that we're not absorbing what we're taking. And just because you're selecting that thing off the shelf that was told to you that would cure inflammation.
Right. Yeah.
There's call to action.
Yeah. So with the dosing, I'm also curious about age. Is there a certain age that we should be starting this? Does everyone need to take it?
So the older you get, your more senescent cells you're going to have. And so obviously, if you're a super young person, you might not get the same level of benefits as someone who is aging. But it's been funny because at Neurohacker, we have a lot of young biohackers that are in their early 20s that are wanting to do everything, wanting to just tick a box. And I've been really interested in getting, anecdotal N of 1 stories and reports back from them from using this. So I think it's, when we created this, we wanted to test it, but we were also uncertain about the felt experience. Like there's so much science on the benefit of it, but we weren't, this wasn't like a formula put together like Qualia Mind, where we're like, someone's going to feel it that day. They're going to feel focused, energized, alive. This is a formula built on research about from the cell, kind of like, foot up approach of something that everybody should benefit from it, because this is a biological process. But it's been interesting now that the product's been on the market a few months and we've had our studies to start seeing that there is noticeable, like felt experiences associated with this product. And I do think it's more like your miles may vary, depending on where you're at in your health journey. But I think like really appreciating the science behind it and wanting, hey, I do want a 2-day cellular detox protocol in my monthly regimen. Like this is something that this formula is the most well thought out formula on the market. And this is like kind of what I want to have as part of my insurance or anti-aging kind of thought process.
Ooh, I love that idea as insurance policy. That's awesome. Yeah. Because I hear that all the time. Clients are like, well, I don't feel anything. How do I know if it's working? But there's something to be said for just committing, trusting the process, doing your research and seeing long-term, because we know anything that you just do once or even twice is probably not going to produce that benefit. I would love to know about the hit and run strategy. Are we getting a hormetic stress, or is this just more of like a strategic maintenance? Like you're just bringing in the cleaning crew so it's not building up? Or is there any sort of stress being put on the cell?
Yeah, it is a process that does stimulate stress to a degree. And so I like to so the biohackers' first questions they're asked is like, can I fast? Can I cold plunge? Can I stack this with like 10 other super stressful protocols on top of it? And the answer is yes. And you are going to get maybe some incremental gains, but I always like to say like, hey, let's zoom back for a minute and think about what's that Goldilocks zone for stress. And so, our science team and myself included, like to take it on the weekends when we're not as stressed and let this, and, first weekend of the month, just take it and kind of like not overdo it and just let this process run. And it is, the cleaning crew to a degree, but it is also a stress, a stress event.
Hmm. Have you done any testing on biological age with this?
Not yet. That's on the list though. So
Okay.
so with Qualia Life, we did an age meter test, which is really cool. They do cognitive, they do hearing, they do tapping, all this to come up with your biological age number. And then we did before and after tests on that. That's studies on our website under the studies section, but it's pretty cool to see like the before and after improvements on that. But we definitely are looking to incorporate some of that, as well as there's some blood and saliva biological age tests that are available now too that we might incorporate as well.
Okay. I'll be a guinea pig because
Me too.
My most recent test with True Age, True Diagnostic, I was not happy with my biological age. I've only done one round of the Senolytics, so maybe I'll incorporate that into my monthly routine, and then in like 3 or 4 months, I'm going to retest. So I'll be a guinea pig.
That's so funny. So I took the True Diagnostic or True Age test as well. Yeah. And I called Ryan. Ryan is, I think, their CEO. And I was like, what are you saying here? Why am I? But this might have been 2020. And he's like, it's okay. Everybody's like older right now. Like, but I was like,
that test is eye-opening. Yeah.
But it is funny. I mean, knowledge is power. I also did the biological age testing that Viome offers. Have you done that?
Yes, and I was like 18 on that one. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I like the result of that one. I didn't like the result of True Age. So it does.
Let's just pick the one that we like the best.
Yeah.
That's what I do with my data trackers in the morning. I'm like, that score is the one.
Yeah, I guess because they're looking at different things. And then I've done Inside Trackers age test. And I mean, that's looking at more like blood basic lab markers versus I think True Diagnostic is just looking at the epigenetic methylation.
Right.
Which, I mean, epigenetic alteration is another hallmark of aging. So I guess they're really going after that. So wait, is Neurohacker going to have a product for every hallmark of aging?
There are a couple others that we are doing research around and researching. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hit another one. I don't think it's not a checklist.
Okay. Every year, new product. We'll get all of them by 2030. Yeah.
But we're really electrified and excited about the research around health span or just creating more youthful expression of our bodies as we age. And so I think I think as there's more research to support a new formula, we're gonna put it together. And if there's gaps, like our principles for why we even release a product is there has to be a tremendous amount of research, and then there has to be a gap in the market. Like we don't produce any like Me Too or like similar competing products out there. There has to be a need for and a meaningful need for what we're doing.
Yeah. We really appreciate that. I know it kind of drives me nuts when supplement companies are just like pushing out just another one of this and that, and it's like there's so many, like all of the Neurohacker products are so unique. I mean, it's fun to actually flip over the bottle and look at the ingredient list. I mean, the formulas they're kind of unheard of.
Yeah. That to me, it's like this packaging for Senolytic, this little box is like a novel on a research novel, honestly, about each ingredient and like the dosing, etc. that you could, I mean, anyone who takes this and reads on this, like knows 90% more than the doctors that I've interfaced with right now. Like it's really incredible at the amount of education that needs to happen around Senolytics and senescent cells right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, the packaging, we were joking at the Biohacking conference a couple of weeks ago. It's the perfect size for a stocking stuffer. So anyone that's getting ready for the holidays, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be coming up. It's just like perfect size.
You're like, here you go, Grandpa. Have your Senolytic with your eggnog.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to give the gift of health, such an easy thing, right? Because they're not really going to feel anything. There's no danger for certain symptoms. can't hurt, right? Is there anyone that should not be taking it? I guess would be the next question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is an adult formula. It's for adults over 18. We always on all our products say if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, like not to take the product because we just haven't done the research in those, formats. But other than that, it's safe for, adults to use.
Yeah. And I know you get a lot of biohacker questions. So for the biohacker that still thinks more is better, what are the contraindications to not following the prescribed dosage and maybe taking a little bit extra? Is it harmful? Are you just wasting it?
Gosh, that's a good, like doubling the dose so our study, we did a study instead of waiting 4 weeks, we waited 2 weeks. And we felt like that was enough time. So that would be a way to accelerate your results or your regimen, would to be to shorten the healing window or restorative window between your hit and runs. So that would be one, I guess, hack to do if you really want to accelerate things.
Okay.
But no more than that. Can you share where the word senolytic came from?
Okay. So I want to pull up my notes because it's a Greek or Latin words. So senic means old, lytic means destroying. And so it literally is a substance that is targeting the, old, it's an old destroying
the old.
Yeah. And, making room for those youthful cells and healthy tissues.
Very clear. And I think very catchy. I love the word senolytic.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And it reminds me, Dr. Pompa always says, you have to fix the cell to get well or something, or maybe it's the other way around. To get well, you have to fix the cell. That's what you're doing here.
Right. Like the health of the tissues are completely correlated with the health of the cells. And yeah, I said I'd share a quote from one of our customers. So our customer, Christopher, he shared with me that he had a noticeable more ease in many key areas. Joints feel like I've turned the clock back 10 years, a marked improvement in my joints. And then, which I think is like really exciting. Obviously, this isn't like a joint relief formula, but to have that powerful review from, joint pain, I think is exciting. And then, a couple of practitioners shared, like Dr. Stickler, he really, he said that like this formula is way ahead of the curve using senolytics to promote whole body rejuvenation. It's 7 senolytics in one. That's really like how to think about this formula. It's not just, you're not just doing one, you're not just taking fisetin, you're not just taking quercetin, you're taking like, 7 different ingredients, and then 2 ingredients, which we hadn't talked about, milk thistle and soy, which are in there to help support the effectiveness of those 7 senolytics and been studied to do so, but also help in the cellular communication networks, which I briefly mentioned are one of the things that the senescent cells exploit.
What kind of soy?
It's here we go. The soy debate. So it's a soybean seed extract, and it's and because of the way that it's extracted, it isn't as villainous as soy is typically portrayed. It would basically, mimic the, Japanese consumption of how they're eating soy in their diet, versus any kind of negative. But obviously, if you have an extreme allergy to soybean, we'd stay away with that. But if you're just staying away from it from all the other like hormonal, you're not going to have those problems in the way that it's implemented here and the dosage that it's implemented here.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, soy, I think, has been vilified for a good reason, just because in the United States it's mostly genetically modified. It's super processed. It's turned into soy milk and soy yogurt and soy cheese. It's like, that's not, like you said, that's not what they're eating in Japan, where they're seeing, health benefits from soy. So there's a very big spectrum of soy.
Yeah, no, that's well said. That's well said. Like I didn't realize I'd have to defend that ingredient so frequently. We just got back from the Biohacker conference, and I was like, okay, you see all of the other things that are incredible in this. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It really plays an important role here. And there's incredible science of it supporting the cellular communication and rejuvenating it, which is really important because of those senescent cells damaging that. So, and then milk thistle. So we have a bunch of naturopaths in our formulating team, and milk thistle is like one of the like most classic naturopath ingredients. Greg shared with me. He was like, yeah, in naturopath school, they say, if you really don't know how to treat someone, focus on the liver and focus on digestion. And milk thistle is what incredible liver ingredient there, but actually has some senolytic properties, and more research is coming out for that. So it's really, you know, this formula has like cutting edge Ayurveda naturopath like basic principles. It's really really unique. That's really about it that I could say.
Yeah,
I love
amazing.
That. So exciting.
Thank you. Well,
I have a silly question for you.
Oh,
I keep reading the word and I know I'm going to say it wrong. Fisetin.
I used
to say
wrong.
Fisetin.
Well, I've heard people pronounce quercetin, and quercetin. And I don't know if it's like a colloquial thing, but folks in California say quercetin, but I have heard quercetin said other places. But fisetin I've heard pretty consistently, at least in my small circles.
Okay, fisetin. I'm going to drill that later. I've been getting a lot of emails about fisetin in the last year or so, and it's found in apples and strawberries and fruits similar to that. Do you know if fisetin is that the compound in apples that behind the reason an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Is it also like a strawberry a day keeps the doctor away?
Yeah, I mean, it has those. It's that
fisetin.
It has those, those polyphenols, those really rich polyphenols in there that have those properties. So yeah, maybe that is why we say apples a day.
Huh.
Fisetin a day keeps the doctor away.
But it doesn't. Remember the high dose, the hit and run. So
right, not every day. Not every day.
A fisetin 2 days a week keeps the doctor. I'll be clear, very clear here.
Yeah,
amazing. Well, we're super, super excited about this compound. Thank you so much for sharing the research. And we invite the audience to dig into the research too. I know Neurohacker has lots of great resources, and maybe there's a few extra you want to share that we could put in the show notes.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
We published all the research behind each ingredient and the thought process of why we included it. So I'll give you guys that link. I think that link is, you could read it like 20 times. It has so much information in it. You could teach a course on that link.
Wow.
Ooh, very fun.
Great. All right. We will share all of that in the show notes. Lauren, before we let you run, we want to ask one final question. If you can give our audience one piece of advice, something they can start doing today to optimize their health and wellness.
Oh boy. Well, I know you ask this question a lot, so probably everybody, you've covered sleep to death, but that really is,
in 160 something episodes, we've never had a repeated advice. So go for it. Whatever about sleep.
I talk to, I have a privilege of talking to a lot of people and scientists that are experts in sleep, and then people who are struggling with sleep. And it seems like there's this real pattern with like health and feeling productive and feeling confident and feeling happy and sleep. And, when someone says, oh, I can't sleep, I'm a bad sleeper, or blah, 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 I'm like, well, when do you start working on your sleep? 9:45, 10:45, 15 minutes before you go to bed. And that just doesn't work. And especially for women, honestly, we really need that wind down time. Like 90% of sleep problems really happen between your ears and your brain, of just that hyper arousal. And I think for me, a game changing is really to create and eat an evening routine that starts at dinner. And it's a wind down. It's a multi-hour, multi-touch process of me transitioning from my hyper work, charging, exercise, all those hats that we wear as women, my mom hat, etc., and really programming my mindset to start releasing and slowing down. And, you know, we have a sleep supplement, which is Qualia Night. And for me, the dosage is recommended to take at dinner. And so for me, that kind of like mentally kickstarts my evening routine. It's like, soon as dinner's over, I take my Qualia Night. And then it's like, I'm telling my brain, okay, start going into evening mode. And my evening mode is not super stimulating. It's really all based around kind of dampening my hyperarousal. And I think, you know, the more dedicated a person is about like really having some just energizing, or not energizing, rejuvenating and like relaxing evening practices, like it shows up the minute you wake up in the morning. And everything from weight, honestly, like you can cheat, you can eat a lot. If you sleep well, I swear you don't have to focus as much on diet. If you sleep well, like just everything is easier. And to me, that has been like a game changer. And it isn't just one thing. If I listed out all the little things I do to ensure I have a good night's sleep, from weighted blankets to, you know, sound therapy, to like my breath work, to some yoga stretches, to fancy pajamas, which I think is like not talked about enough, but your sleepwear is definitely critical, you know? So it's a lot of things, but I think it really starts with like setting a time every day that you're like, okay, at this part of the day, I'm going to start. And hopefully it's like 3 to 4 hours or more before bed of like, this is when I'm going to start my wind down. I'm done answering emails. I'm done being hyper. Like this is me in my, you know, relaxation mode.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I promise you, no one has ever shared that. Thank you. Very insightful. Very helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I know you guys talk to us a lot of great people. So,
still have not had repeated advice to this day.
And your personal experience is just so valuable. So thank you for that. Yeah.
What do you guys do? What's your number one?
I kind of could say somewhere in the realm of sleep. I mean, I feel like sleep is my superpower because, like you said, I feel like my diet can maybe slip a little bit, my exercise can slip, but like when my sleep is on, I'm just like a nicer, better human being in all aspects of life. But the wind down is huge for me. Like if I'm on my email too close to bed, I get in bed and my brain is just like going. So I'm really sensitive to that wind down period. I totally agree with that.
Oh, I forgot to share. Like, okay, so I made this new hack. You know how you're not supposed to eat dinner, or you're not supposed to eat 3 hours before bed? Like, if you want to be skinny and all this other stuff, and it actually affects your deep sleep. But don't check your email 3 hours before bed. Like, just don't check your email 3 hours before bed. And the same, like, think about it as you're eating a piece of chocolate. And like, it's easy to stop yourself from eating a piece of chocolate 3 hours before bed. But for some reason, it's like really hard to break yourself from checking your email 3 hours before
It is
bed.
hard. It is hard, but it makes such a difference because you'll get that one email that just stimulates all the thoughts. And then you're wide awake.
Yes. It's like Russian roulette. They're like opening it. Is it going to be okay? Is it not? Am I going to be up all night?
It's also just a slippery slope. I know for me, it's so easy to say just one more. And they really add up.
What about you,
I think sleep is number one too, but the pathway into better sleep for me is always movement. Like if I don't get enough movement activity during the day, I won't sleep as well. If my brain is tired, I probably need to do some movement. I think it's just really overlooked, especially in the biohacking space, because there's so much focus on supplements, which are really valuable. And we need all of these biohacking tools in the research, but movement. Yeah. We need to move more and move move better. A lot of people are just checking off the exercise box, but not looking at the quality of their movement.
Ooh. What's your movement jam?
Great.
It depends on the day, but
I
do a lot. Some dancing if that's what feels good. I do a lot of mobility. I have some kind of structure, but then there's always an intuitive plan. So tapping into whatever my body needs that day. But it's because my toolbox is rather big. I wouldn't just necessarily tell a client like, do what you want to do today. But you need to have variety for sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go move after this.
Yes.
Even just like some shoulder rolls and just put on some music and be a fool for like 10 minutes.
Dance.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Therapeutic.
All right. Lots of great advice today. Thanks to the Laurens. Double Lauren.
Yes. Especially to you, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining us. This is so exciting. We cannot wait to share this with our audience. And thank you for spending your time with us today. Can you tell us where our audience can find more of you and Neurohacker?
Oh, yeah. Find us on Instagram. We're pretty active on our Instagram handle. And then on our website, if you can join our email list, we send out newsletters and coupons and all kinds of fun stuff through our email as well.
Great.
Wonderful.
We'll link to all of that in the show notes for today's episode, so you can find it there. And thanks to everyone that tuned in today. We will see you next time.